Hi, I'm Brian. I'm the Homebrew believer. Today we're going to learn how to do an all-grain brew. Today is going to be a very easy brew. We're going to be brewing a British mild ale, which doesn't use very much grain, so it's going to be pretty quick and easy. So this is basically your basic all-grain setup. You have your mash tun, and then a hot liquor tank, which I do for continuous sparge setup. You can do what's called batch sparging. Basically what that process entails is draining all the sweet wort out of the mash tun, then taking your 170 degree water, filling it in, stirring it around, letting it sit and letting the grain settle a little bit, and then draining that all off again. Right now what we're doing is we're getting our mash water ready. Our water is at 172 degrees. So what I like to do is rinse the inside of the mash tun with about, a half gallon of water. So inside the mash tun you can see we've got your sparge ring, which is where the hot water will feed into and rinse the grains, and at the bottom you've got your straining ring, and that just basically filters out all the grain particles. We're going to throw in all our grain. This method is a little bit different than what some homebrewers do. Some homebrewers like to do a dough-in process where they just add the grain straight into the heated water. I personally don't like to do that because I think that it can fry the grain. It kind of shocks it with too hot temperature. So I add it a little bit at a time, stirring it in so you evenly coat all the grain. Stir that up a little. So now that we've got all of our hot water mixed in with the grains, we're going to let it sit for 60 to 75 minutes. In the meantime, while we're waiting for our mash to get ready, I'm heating the sparge water. I'm going to get the sparge water to about 185, 190 degrees. That way, by the time I pour it into that hot liquor tank up there, it'll be about 170, which is pretty much what you want for sparge water. Since I only did 3 gallons of mash water, I'm doing about 5 gallons of sparge water. Alright, so now that our mash has been sitting long enough and it's all ready to sparge, what we're going to do first is we're going to do what's called recirculating the wort. As this has been sitting and the grain bed has been settling, you have a lot of bits and pieces that are kind of on the bottom that come out. We really don't want to have those make it into our boil pot. So what you do is pour off a couple quarts slowly until basically it looks like unfiltered apple cider. So as you can see, at first there's all these little chunks in here. You really don't want those to make it into your boil pot. We're going to go ahead and recirculate this. We're going to do this a couple times, but I'll just show you it once. Okay, let's go ahead and open up your mash tun. As you can see, you got the nice grain bed in there. You're just going to gently pour it on top. Try not to disturb the grains too much, because basically what we're doing is we're turning the grains into a filtration system. Alright, now that we've recirculated our wort, we're going to start the sparge process. So you go ahead and open up your mash tun. Start draining the wort. You don't want to drain too fast or else the bed can compact and you can get a stuck sparge, and that is a real pain in the butt to deal with. So I'm going to just go ahead and open the valve only about halfway. It takes a little longer that way, but that way you know you can get all the sugars out of the grain. We've got our sparge water all hot and in the hot liquor tank. Basically what we're going to do is the hot water will flow down here through the sparge ring and help rinse the grains. Underneath the hood of the mash tun, you can see the sparge ring doing its thing. Down in here, we've got that sweet wort coming out. As soon as these grains are pretty much rinsed clean, the water coming out of this nozzle is going to be pretty much clear. That's mostly just water coming from your hot liquor tank, but we're going to want to fill up this pot until we get about 5.8 gallons-ish, 6, That way we can have room to boil some off during our boil. The water that's coming out of here is pretty much clear. It's mostly sparge water, just rinsing the grains. So we'll probably just want another gallon in there, half gallon in there before we start our boil. Now one thing you want to make sure is that you never leave the lid on the hot wort when you're getting to your boil. It has a propensity to boil over really, really quick. As it starts to boil, we're going to start seeing a lot of foam forming on the surface, which is a bunch of proteins and all sorts of other things getting together and coagulating and doing their chemistry business. So make sure you don't leave a lid on it and keep an eye on it. Go ahead and stir it on occasion so that way you don't scorch your wort. So one thing you can do with all your spent grain after you're done is save some of it, because there's some great recipes out there that you can use this grain for, making things like breads, pizza doughs, muffins, pretty much any grain-based food. We're getting near our boiling point here. When you start seeing all this foam lining at the top, this means that you're about to get to your boil, and that way you need to start watching your pot pretty carefully. It just started boiling, and we're going to turn the heat down a little bit. That way we don't get a boil over, or else that foam is just going to go everywhere. So now we're going to do our first edition of hops. With this beer, we're only going to do a 60-minute boil. So we're going to want to add our bittering hops first. This beer has a very easy hop schedule, so we're only going to do hops additions at 60 minutes for bittering hops, and then at 10 minutes for aroma hops and flavoring hops. So we've got about 15 minutes left in the boil, so I'm going to add some Irish moss, which I have hydrated with some warm water. It's been sitting for about 20 minutes hydrating. So basically all you do is you just go ahead and pour it in. Irish moss helps remove the proteins, all the protein haze from the beer, so it helps with the overall clear beer in the end. There is 10 minutes left in the boil, so right now I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of our hops. These are our aroma hops. So during the last few minutes of your boil, you want to make sure you get your wort chiller ready. You don't have to have a wort chiller, it just makes the whole process much, much easier. If you don't have a wort chiller, you can go ahead and use an ice bath in your tub, but that requires a substantial amount of ice. Ultimately, you want to get the wort down to about 70 to 80, 75, 80 degrees, no higher than 80 degrees. So what I like to do is use my wort chiller, go ahead and sanitize it ahead of time. Technically, you can go ahead and stick the wort chiller in the boiled wort towards the last couple minutes of your brew, and that will sanitize it. However, copper has a tendency to oxidize, and the star sand helps remove some of the oxidation. If you don't do it ahead of time, it will just get sucked into your wort. You'll have pretty metallic tasting beer. So now that our boil time is expired, I'm going to turn off the heat. Take your sanitized wort chiller, go ahead and stick it in there. Go ahead and turn on your water. And this system will start cooling it'll cool your wort in about 25 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and, I sanitized this lid. We're going to go ahead and cover it up here and let it sit for about 20 minutes. And then after about 20 minutes, continue checking the temperature to make sure it gets down to about 75 degrees. Looks like we're at about 74 degrees. That's perfect. Go ahead and pull this guy out. Try not to mix up the sediment very much. So we're going to just rinse this off nice and well. That way I don't have to use any PBW or any other cleaning solution. As long as you rinse it off right away, pretty much get off all the gunk. You really want to be careful with your wort about this point of the brewing process. It's very susceptible to infection. You want to make sure you go ahead and sanitize your brew bucket or carboy, whatever you prefer, ahead of time. Make sure you sanitize both the lid, the airlock, cork, After your wort is cooled and everything to about 75 degrees, use your strainer, set it in your brew bucket, pour the wort into your brew bucket, using the strainer to catch any residual hops. You want to retain as much of that in the brew pot as you can. As you can see, we've already poured it out, but there is still quite a bit of gross stuff in there. We pretty much kept all of it in there, which is great. We're going to take a gravity measurement. We've got our wine thief and our hydrometer and a glass. I personally like to give it a little test. We're going to take our gravity measurement. And it looks like we're hitting about 1.37, which is actually a little higher than we were shooting for, which is great. It means that we had a good extraction. I was aiming for a target of 1.33. Now we can go ahead and look at the overall color of our wort. It's a little cloudy with proteins, but you can kind of get a general feel for what it's going to look like at the end. It's quite good. So now we're going to go ahead and pitch our yeast. It's really important to make sure your wort is properly aerated before you pitch your yeast. So use your sanitized spoon, churn up the wort enough so you're getting quite a bit of air in it. You'll see a substantial amount of foam form on the top of your wort. Go ahead and pitch it. Alright, so now that we've got our yeast pitched and our wort oxygenated, we go ahead and seal the bucket up, and we're going to let it sit. With this beer in particular, we're going to let it sit in primary for 1 week, and then we're going to rack it into our glass carboy, and we're going to let that sit in secondary for 2 weeks. After that point, we can go ahead and bottle it or keg it. Last but not least, after we've got all of our wort in the fermenter bucket and we've got our yeast pitched, it's time to clean stuff. Pour the remaining solution into the brew pot, and then give that a quick scrub out with the non-abrasive sponge as well. Please come and check out our website, homebrewbeliever.blogspot.com. Come and see all the recipes, tips and tricks, and other how-tos that we have available to offer there.
What's the most important part of brewing beer?
Drinking beer. Drinking beer while you brew beer. Don't forget to pour yourself a pint.